Welcome back, I'm Harrison, and today I'm going to be walking you through another art process video, where essentially I'm going to be taking you through step by step the entire process it takes for me to make this specific piece of art. This is a 2.0 of a previous piece of art I've done where essentially I wanted to find some way to do flat sculptures. Maybe you call it wall hangings. I, in my eccentricity, call it flat sculpture. Something hangable that still has some sculptural aspects to it. So previously I adhered leaf veneer material onto some paper to make a nice little small wall hanging. I thought a nice little upgrade to that would be to use wood panel. So today I am customizing the design a little bit and inlaying leaf veneers into this panel, not dissimilar to wood marquetry, if you know what that is. If you don't, you're still welcome here, but here I am just cutting up a nice little template to match my panel inlay shape so that I can use this to cut out the exact shape and measurements from my leaf veneer. So here I'm just like getting eyes on it to see, is this the right size, and just essentially creating the template from the panel. If you want to know how I created this little wood panel where it's nice and inlaid, essentially what I did was travel through the forest, found some CNC fairies to cut up this shape out for me, and then when they were done, they flew it back into my little studio and left it for me. And here I'm just thankful they did that by doing a little dance. Now I am going to use my template and cut out the shape from this leaf. Obviously, editing was involved. The process it took for me to very meticulously pick which leaf I wanted to go with was longer than I'd like to admit. But I liked this leaf, and I can't tell you with how long it takes for these leaf veneers to dry. It is like a hold your breath kind of moment when I'm like, okay, well, this better work out because I can't just go to the store and buy more leaf veneers unless you like to call nature the leaf store, which makes sense. But either way, it takes some time. So I was a little trepid about, making this work for me because I don't have as many leaf veneers as I'd like. So here is the first little veneer, and I'm just laying it on. I'm not gluing yet. I'm just seeing how it looks. And I think it is a success. I like the little textures that you have in this little cutout of the leaf. You almost are unsure what this thing is when you approach it at first because you don't have that leafy shape, which I think is very fun, very artsy, if you will. But here I am cutting out a second little shape, and this is the whole purpose of the template. I mean, I think doing the measurements and everything like that, especially when it's an inlay, the template helps save a lot of time. But let's see just how well this second little shape goes with the first one. Oh, look. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I like this. I'm definitely in my groove at this point. In the video, I might be minutes in, but in real life, I was hours into trial and error and figuring this out. But I was running out of veneers a little bit, and so I had to pull up some more to make that third little piece. And I didn't want all three pieces to come from the exact same leaf. I just didn't have the space for it, but also I thought it would be nice to use a different leaf to incorporate same species. These are all magnolia leaves, but maybe a little bit different texture from a different magnolia leaf veneer. And so I had some scrap veneer material from a previous project because obviously these veneers are precious to me, and I'm cutting it out and seeing how that matches with the original too. And when we see them next to one another, I'm like, this is very nice. You've got a nice little contrast. Each piece has its own texture, but they also have a nice little pairing with each other. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. And now it's time to pick my little bit, my little symbol square to inlay into the bottom to kind of continue the aesthetic that the original piece had, the 1.0 from a previous video where I had a nice little square and symbols as almost like a title or art description on the piece itself. I'm pretty satisfied with all of these things, my veneer, my symbol, and now it's time to glue. And as you can see here, I made a mistake. I missed the cap, and now I'm just like, oh, time to clean up. And it was just one of those moments I was too tunnel vision into the process that I wasn't paying very much attention, and I made a little bit of a mess. But that's part of it in the end. And here it's time to take it to the point of no return, where I am very much meticulously gluing these veneers onto the little squares here. And after doing the first one, I realized the rib material on the back of the leaves that keep its leaf structure is kind of raising it up more than I like. So I figured I'd do a little bit of sanding to like lower it down to truly make it as flat as possible. And now I'm using the template to apply some pressure and make sure that the veneer squares are flush as much as possible. And here I am doing the final little bit of sanding on this third square and seeing how it looks. You might not be able to tell, but it was a little bit of a process to like make sure I didn't like, ruin the veneers in the process of sanding. You know what I mean? These things are brittle and they're fragile, which is kind of what you want in nature. If it wasn't that way, would we love it as much? But that's more of a philosophical question for another time. Here, I've got all 3 veneers glued, and I'm just doing some cleanup. And now I am gluing as a little treat. Consider it dessert for me to be able to just glue that little square. There's no way that's going to go wrong, and it didn't. And so now it's time to figure out what I wanted to draw, what symbols I want to accompany my little square to finish off the expression. So in a little scrap piece of paper, I drew out what symbols I like, and now it's time to make my guiding lines on the panel so I can draw out said squares, said symbols. You know what I mean? Here it is, the last little bit before we're going to see some nice B-roll of this 2.0 art expression come to life here in a second. And shortly after, oh, here we go. Yeah, see, here's what I'm talking about. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, what I like about it is that this is clearly a 2.0 of where I'm coming from. And yes, there will most certainly be 3, 4.0s until I'm dead. I'll continue to iterate, but I'm happy with this. Here are the tools that I use in this video in case you want to know. So obviously we've got leaf veneers, sandpaper, panels, little bits. We got fancy antique rulers, obviously craft paper, some PVA glue rather, and my go-tos, my pencils, my pointers, and of course the X-Acto knife, a little brush for gluing, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching this little art process video, and I will see you in the next one.